It is so hard to believe this. This guy was once the #1 movie star.
Burt Reynolds was the king of cool. With that famous mustache, charm, and swagger, he ruled the screen for decades. But behind the laughs, the fame, and the fast cars was a man with secrets.
Sorry, I don't want to get married.
Terrific.
He loved big, lived loud, and left fans guessing what he was really like at home. Then came his son. Quiet, private, and often out of the spotlight. When Burt left him out of his will, everyone started talking. Was there bad blood? Was there something we didn't know? Now, years later, his son is finally speaking out. Join us as we uncover the truth about Burt Reynolds and his role as a father. A boy named Buddy. Burt Reynolds was born on February 11, 1936, as Burton Leon Reynolds, Jr. His parents were Burton Milo Reynolds, Sr. and Harriet Fernette, also called Fern. The family had roots in many places: Dutch, English, Scots-Irish, and Scottish. Burt also said he had Cherokee and Italian blood. For years, Burt told people he was born in Waycross, Georgia. But in 2015, he shared the truth. He was actually born in Lansing, Michigan. In his book, he explained that his family was living there when his father was drafted into the Army. When Burt's dad joined the military, the family moved to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri. They stayed there for 2 years. Then, when his dad went to Europe, Burt, his mom, and sister moved to Lake City, Michigan. That's where his mother had grown up. In 1946, they moved again, this time to Riviera Beach, Florida. It was there that Burt became friends with Dick Hauser, a friendship that lasted his whole life. His dad later became the chief of police in Riviera Beach. Locals knew Burt by the nickname Buddy. Funny enough, Marlon Brando, an actor Burt often got compared to, also had the nickname Buddy as a kid. At Palm Beach High School, Burt stood out. He played football and ran track. In 1953, he was picked as a first-team All-State fullback. The University of Miami wanted him, but he chose to play football for Florida State University under Coach Tom Nugent. But college football wouldn't go as planned, and what followed changed Burt's path forever. At Florida State, Burt shared a room with Lee Corso, who later became a famous football coach and broadcaster. Burt also joined the Phi Delta Theta fraternity. He started his college football career strong, scoring a touchdown in the first game of the 1954 season. Though he injured his shoulder midway through the season, Burt still made an impact. He rushed for 134 yards and scored 2 touchdowns. He even caught passes, returned punts, and made a defensive interception. But in 1955, things took a turn. During a preseason workout, Burt tore cartilage in his knee. He tried to play again in a B game against Georgia Tech, but his body couldn't keep up. As he said, "I knew then I was finished as a football player." Soon after, he had surgery in West Palm Beach. Doctors were hopeful he'd return the next year. But just 2 months later, disaster struck again. Burt was only 19 when he got into a serious car accident on State Road A1A. He hit a stalled truck. The other driver ran off, and Burt was left with internal injuries and a ruptured spleen. His car was destroyed, and he even lost a special watch he had gotten at the 1955 Sun Bowl. The crash kept him away from Florida State for almost 2 years. He took classes at Palm Beach Junior College to keep up with school. He returned to FSU in 1957 and gave football one last try. But his injuries held him back. After one game where some blamed him for the team's loss, Burt decided to quit football for good. He told his teammates he was done. He got engaged soon after to Jean Hayden, a former beauty queen, but they never got married. She went on to marry someone else. It was the end of football, but the beginning of something new. A stage, a mentor, and a new dream. While at junior college, Burt joined an English class taught by Watson B. Duncan III. This teacher would change his life. Duncan asked Burt to audition for a school play. After hearing him read Shakespeare in class, he gave Burt a lead role in Outward Bound. That performance earned Burt the Best Actor award at the 1956 Palm Beach Junior College Drama Awards. Burt later said, "I read 2 words, and they gave me a lead." In his book, he called Duncan the most important person in his life. Winning the acting award also came with a scholarship to the Hyde Park Playhouse in New York. Burt didn't see acting as a career yet, but it beat working tough jobs in the summer. At the theater, he met Joanne Woodward. She liked him and helped him find an agent. She later said, "I don't think I ever actually saw him perform, but he had this lovely personality that made you want to help him." He later acted in Tea and Sympathy at the Neighborhood Playhouse in New York. His role in Look We've Come Through brought good reviews. Burt toured with the play, even driving the cast's bus. When he returned to New York, he took acting classes with other future stars like Carol Lawrence and Red Buttons. He struggled in some classes and even thought about going back to Florida. But in December 1956, he got a part in a revival of Mr. Roberts, where Charlton Heston was the lead. After that, director John Forsythe helped him get an audition for Sayonara, but he was told he looked too much like Marlon Brando, so he didn't get the role. Still, people saw his charm and charisma. Even though the screen test didn't go well, studio boss Lou Wasserman said, "I don't care whether he can act or not. Anyone who has this effect on women deserves a break." Breaking through with grit and a stolen spotlight. Burt started small in Hollywood. He worked odd jobs, waiting tables, washing dishes, and even jumping through glass on live TV for $150. He also acted in TV shows like Flight, M Squad, Schlitz Playhouse, and Pony Express. Eventually, he signed a 7-year deal with Universal Studios. His first major break came when he got cast in Riverboat alongside Darren McGavin. Burt played Ben Fraser, the boat's pilot. But it didn't last long. He only appeared in 20 episodes before quitting. He said he didn't like his role or the people he worked with. After that, things picked up. He was cast in popular shows like Gunsmoke, Hawk, and Dan August. He also began getting film roles, Navajo Joe, and 100 Rifles among them. But it was Deliverance in 1972 that truly launched his movie career. His role as Lewis Medlock turned heads. From there, Burt became a box office giant. He starred in hit after hit: White Lightning, The Longest Yard, Smokey and the Bandit, Semi-Tough, and more. Smokey and the Bandit alone started a 6-year run where Burt was Hollywood's #1 draw. He didn't just act. He directed, too. He had a sharp sense for what fans liked. He kept the laughs coming and the action rolling in the Cannonball Run, The End, and Sharky's Machine. For some of these, he even did his own stunts. From 1978 to 1982, Burt was voted the world's top movie star. He shared this record with Bing Crosby. But fame didn't last forever. After a few flops, Burt returned to TV in Evening Shade, a comedy show that brought him a Golden Globe and an Emmy. Years later, in 1997, he surprised everyone with his powerful role in Boogie Nights. He played Jack Horner, a high-minded adult film director. The role won him a Golden Globe and got him nominated for an Oscar and a BAFTA. His comeback proved one thing: Burt Reynolds never stopped being a star. But as much as people loved seeing him on screen, few really knew what he was like behind the scenes. That part of Burt's story would remain quiet until his own son finally decided to share it with the world. A father's silence and a son's struggle. Burt Reynolds was always full of charm on screen, but behind the scenes, he carried deep emotional wounds. One of the most painful came from his own father. On the Jonathan Ross show, Burt shared how hard it was growing up with a dad who didn't show love. He couldn't say, "I love you," Burt said with emotion in his voice. His father, Burton Milo Reynolds, was a police chief and a tough man from an older generation. Burt explained that his father just wasn't the type to hug, kiss, or say kind words. Still, Burt held on to one moment that stayed with him forever. His father once said, "I'm proud of you," and to Burt, that meant everything. That was "I love you" in his way, Burt said, tearing up. It was a small moment, but it meant the world to him. Their relationship was not easy. Burt shared a story where his father threw him in jail for fighting with drunk men his dad had arrested. He spent 3 days behind bars. Did I learn anything from it? Yeah, I learned that he was never going to say, "I love you, go home." After an injury ended Burt's football dreams, he found acting almost by accident. He wandered from the football field to a theater space and suddenly felt at home. "It was like the first time I walked on a football field," he said. "I thought, this is home." But when he told his father about choosing acting as a career, it didn't go well. I think he laughed. Then he said, "How sweet." Burt didn't take that lightly. He looked his father in the eye and said, "Well, I don't intend just to go to the theater. I intend to be a big success. I'm very good, but I'm going to do it for you." His father simply replied, "Worth a chance." That cold distance shaped how Burt later chose to be with his own son. "My son who I hug and kiss and grab and love and say, 'I love you, I love you, I love you.' When he sees me coming, he covers his face," Burt said with a soft laugh. "But I can't help it. I don't want him to have what I had." But while Burt tried to be a better father, his own past kept pulling him back. The role he didn't take, and the love he lost. Burt's acting career could have looked even more different if he had said yes to one particular role. While sitting next to Star Wars star Simon Pegg on the same show, Burt revealed that he was once asked to play Han Solo, but he turned it down. "I'm not a big fan of science fiction," he admitted. Still, he laughed and added, "I should have done it, actually." That moment of honesty shows just how unexpected Burt's journey really was. He wasn't chasing roles for fame. He often followed his gut, for better or worse. But when it came to love, things were a bit more complicated. Burt's personal life had its own ups and downs. He was married to actress Judy Carn from 1963 to 1965. Then, he lived with actress Miko Mayama from 1968 to 1971. In 1971, he started dating Dinah Shore, who was 20 years older than him. That relationship lasted until 1975. In the mid-1970s, Burt also dated country singer Tammy Wynette for a short while. But the most talked-about relationship was with actress Sally Field. They were together from 1976 to 1980, and even after breaking up, they stayed connected off and on until 1982. Burt later called Sally the love of my life in 2016. Later, Burt married Lonnie Anderson in 1988. They had a son together, Quinton, but their marriage didn't last. Burt became infatuated with a cocktail waitress named Pam Seals. That situation ended badly, with both sides filing lawsuits before eventually settling out of court. His heartbreaks made headlines, but something else was quietly breaking too: his finances. Fame, fortune, and financial collapse. During the peak of his career, Burt Reynolds was making huge money, up to $10 million a year. But earning money and keeping it are two different things. Burt struggled with his business choices. He teamed up with music executive Buddy Killen to start a restaurant chain called Po Folks. The name came from a country song by Bill Anderson. But the restaurant failed. Then they tried another one. Daisy's Diner. That also didn't work out. The problem? Burt had used his personal money, not a company name. So when the businesses went under, he was held fully responsible. Altogether, Burt lost $20 million in just those two failed ventures. Things got worse after Evening Shade ended. The show was his steady paycheck, and once it stopped, so did his income. On top of that, his divorce from Lonnie Anderson made things messier. Child support, alimony, and the public drama drained him fast. In 1996, CBS, the network behind Evening Shade, sued Burt. He owed them $3.7 million for a loan he didn't pay back. Not long after, Burt filed for bankruptcy. He had debts of $11.2 million and only $6.65 million in assets. He blamed his money problems on an extravagant lifestyle, a divorce, and bad business investments. By the mid-1990s, the man who had once been Hollywood's highest-paid actor was in serious debt. But his struggles weren't just on paper. He began losing real pieces of his life, including the place that meant the most to him. Losing the ranch and the life he built. One of the biggest blows came when Burt lost his beloved home, the Burt Reynolds Ranch. This wasn't just any property. The ranch had a petting zoo. It was also where scenes from Smokey and the Bandit were filmed. It held memories, both personal and professional. But in 2011, Merrill Lynch filed foreclosure papers. Burt owed $1.2 million on the home in Hobe Sound, Florida. It was heartbreaking. He had once been at the top of the world. Now he was fighting to hold on to the last piece of it. The ranch was eventually sold during his bankruptcy. In 2014, the land was rezoned for housing. Palm Beach County School System had the power to sell it, and did so to a development company called K. Hovnanian Homes. That 153-acre property, once full of life and laughter, became just another piece of real estate. Through all of this, Burt remained open about his pain, especially the emotional scars left by his father. When asked how it felt growing up without love from him, Burt answered softly, "A little bit would have been nice. Just a tiny little piece." Still, Burt never stopped loving his father. "He was a strong, strong man," he said. "I idolized him, and it was a tough time for me. That pain shaped him, both as a man and a father. And while Burt lost many things, he made sure his son didn't grow up wondering if he was loved. I don't want him to have what I had," Burt said. "I want him to know that his father loves him so much." Speaking of which, Burt Reynolds was famous for doing his own stunts. That bravery helped make his movies exciting, but it also came at a heavy cost. Health scares. Burt suffered from hypoglycemia, a condition where blood sugar drops too low. He even spoke about it publicly on The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson. During those appearances, he also admitted something many didn't know. He had anxiety. Even someone as strong and charming as Burt had struggles behind the smile. Reynolds was proud to be part of the Stunt Performers Guild and often said so. He once joked about his stunt work, but the injuries were real. In Deliverance, he fell over a waterfall and hurt his tailbone. In another movie, The Man Who Loved Cat Dancing, a fight scene gave him a hernia, which needed surgery. But the worst injury happened in 1984 during the filming of City Heat. On the very first day of shooting, Burt was hit in the face with a metal chair. The blow was so bad it caused a painful jaw condition known as TMJ, temporomandibular joint dysfunction. It hurt to chew or even talk. He had to go on a liquid diet and lost 30 pounds. To deal with the pain, doctors gave him painkillers. But over time, Burt became addicted, and that addiction stayed with him for several years. Despite all this, the stunt community still honored him. In 2015, the Stuntmen's Association gave him the Richard Diamond Farnsworth Award. It was a full-circle moment. Farnsworth had started out as a stuntman and later became a respected actor, just like Burt. But as he got older, the effects of all those stunts and surgeries began to show. Later, years and death. In the later years of his life, Burt's health declined more quickly. In 2009, he had back surgery. Then, in February 2010, he went through a quintuple bypass surgery. That meant doctors had to fix 5 blocked arteries in his heart. It was a major operation, but Burt kept going. Unfortunately, on September 6, 2018, Burt Reynolds died of a heart attack at a hospital in Jupiter, Florida. He was 82 years old. His death shocked fans around the world. People remembered him for his fun energy, his signature laugh, and the huge range of roles he played over decades. He could be funny, serious, wild, or warm, and sometimes all in the same movie. His ex-wife, actress Lonnie Anderson, and their son Quentin held a private memorial service for him on September 20th. It was a quiet goodbye with only close family and friends. Actress Sally Field, the woman he once called the love of his life, was there. So were old friends like Florida State football coach Bobby Bowden, Burt's college roommate Lee Corso, and quarterback Doug Flutie. Burt's body was cremated, and his ashes were given to his niece, Nancy Lee Brown Hess. Years later, on February 11, 2021, he was officially laid to rest at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. A bronze bust of Burt Reynolds was placed there in September that year, honoring his legacy. Even TV honored him. On the day Burt passed, Antenna TV aired an old episode of The Tonight Show from 1982. It featured Burt, a live skit, and his classic wit. Local news stations also remembered how Burt helped bring Hollywood to Georgia. His films made the state a top spot for movie shoots long before it became popular. Even as fans celebrated his legacy on screen, a surprising detail from behind the scenes quickly caught public attention. It had nothing to do with his films, but everything to do with his final wishes. The shocking truth about Burt Reynolds' will. When Burt Reynolds passed away in 2018, people were surprised by something in his will. His only son, Quentin, was left out. This made many fans wonder, was there a falling out between father and son? Did Burt cut him off? But the truth wasn't as harsh as it first seemed. In the will, Burt clearly wrote, "I intentionally omit him from this, my last will and testament, as I have provided for him during my lifetime in my declaration of trust." That line caused a lot of confusion, but it turns out that Burt did not disown Quentin. Instead of using the will, Burt used a trust to provide for his son. A trust is a legal way to pass on money or property, and it stays private. Unlike a will, which becomes public in court, a trust keeps everything quiet. That's what Burt wanted, for his son's future to be handled privately and peacefully. So why did he do it this way? And why did people think it meant something else? That's where things get even more interesting. You see, Burt Reynolds wasn't just thinking about today. He was thinking about the long run. By placing his assets into a living trust, he avoided a long legal process after his death. This meant less paperwork, fewer taxes, and more privacy for the family. He made his plans years before he passed. The will was signed in October 2011, and the trust was already set up even before that. All of Burt's money and property were placed into that trust, which Quentin would later benefit from. Some fans assumed Quentin had been disinherited, but legal experts explained that this is a common method used by many celebrities. Burt wanted to protect his son from public attention and possible family drama. Trusts don't go through court. That means relatives who might try to fight for money don't get notified. Also, Burt didn't make Quentin the person in charge of his estate. Instead, he chose his niece, Nancy Lee Brown Hess. Some people were surprised by this too. But the reason was simple. Burt didn't want Quentin to have any conflicts of interest. As the beneficiary, Quentin would receive the money, but someone else would handle the paperwork. And just in case something happened to Nancy, Burt listed 2 backup names: his great-nephew, Brian Ritchie Brown, and his great-niece, Tracy Aaron Rogers. Burt planned everything down to the last detail. But the one name that stayed out of court, and in the headlines, was Quentin. A quiet son, a public mystery. Quentin Anderson Reynolds was adopted by Burt and his second wife, Lonnie Anderson, back in 1988. Even though both of his parents were big names in Hollywood, Quentin chose a private life. He didn't chase the spotlight. Instead, he built a career behind the scenes in the film industry. So, when news broke that his name was left out of the will, many assumed the worst. But Lonnie Anderson quickly cleared the air. After Burt's death, she gave a heartfelt statement. "Quentin and I are extremely touched by the tremendous outpouring of love and support. Burt was a wonderful director and actor. He was a big part of my life for 12 years, and Quentin's father for 30 years. We will miss him and his great laugh." This statement showed there was no bitterness, just love. Nancy Hess, Burt's niece, and the woman chosen to handle his estate also spoke out. "My uncle was not just a movie icon. He was a generous, passionate, and sensitive man. He was tough. Anyone who breaks their tailbone on a river and finishes the movie is tough. And that's who he was." At the time of Burt's passing, Quentin was already 30 years old. And thanks to the trust Burt had created years earlier, Quentin didn't lose anything. In fact, he likely gained more protection from legal issues and estate taxes. Today, Quentin's net worth is estimated to be between $800,000 and $1 million. This amount comes from his own work in the film industry and from the trust his father set up for him back in 2005. The exact value of the trust is still private, and that's exactly how Burt wanted it. A complicated life and a careful goodbye. Burt Reynolds had a roller coaster life, full of fame, money, and drama. At the top of his career, he was worth around $60 million, but by the time he died, that number had dropped to about $5 million. Why? It wasn't just one thing. Burt admitted it himself in a 2015 Vanity Fair interview. "I've lost more money than is possible because I just haven't watched it. I haven't been somebody who's been smart about his money. There are a couple of actors who are quite brilliant with the way they've handled their money, but they're not very good actors." His financial troubles began after his divorce from Lonnie Anderson. That breakup was public and messy. He also made poor investments in restaurant businesses and lived a lavish lifestyle for many years. But when it came to his son, Burt was smart. He made sure Quentin would be taken care of, even if it didn't look that way on paper. The trust was his way of giving without drawing attention. And though he left his son out of the will, he never left him out of his heart. The will was just one part of a bigger plan. Burt made sure Quentin had support and peace. Before his death, Burt was even preparing for a comeback. He was looking forward to working with Quentin Tarantino in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Sadly, he passed before that could happen. Still, what he left behind wasn't just money or property. It was a careful, thoughtful goodbye. A plan made with love, not just legal words. And for his quiet, private son, that meant everything. But while the world mourned a legend, the ones closest to him shared their grief in quieter ways. In 2020, Burt's niece, Nancy Lee Hess, produced a documentary called I Am Burt Reynolds. It looked back at his life, not just as a star, but as a man, one who made people laugh, took hard hits, and still kept going. In the end, Burt Reynolds left behind more than just movies. He left memories, laughter, and stories that people still share today. Do you think Burt Reynolds made the right choice by setting up a trust instead of mentioning his son in the will? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from Hollywood's fascinating history. See you next time.